Alright, week 2, question and answer coming to you from the great outdoors. Now, there are a few things I've noticed a lot of us struggling with, so I'm just going to go over a few of those things real quick. The first thing I'm seeing is what on earth is a like term? Okay, a lot of us are struggling with this idea. A like term has to have the same variable and the same exponent. Alright, those two things. The big number in front does not have to be the same, but this is really important. The exponent does have to be the same. So if I'm looking at like 3x squared and negative 5x squared, they both have an x for the variable, they both have a squared for the exponent, those are the same. However, if I'm also looking at like an 8x cubed, well, this one has a 3 in the exponent, these have squared in the exponent, so these two can be combined, but this one cannot. Alright, let's look at an example real quick. The other thing I'm seeing people struggle with is subtracting. When there is a subtraction sign between some parentheses. For instance, like this, with that subtraction sign in the middle, this is super important. That subtraction sign cannot just disappear, and it cannot just go with whatever comes immediately after it. There are parentheses here. You can't just pretend they're not there. You need to take this, pretend there's a little 1 here, like we like to do when we don't see a number, pretend that there's a 1 there. Take that minus 1 or that negative 1 and distribute it to everything in the parentheses after it. Now this parentheses, don't need to mess with it. It's fine the way it is. I'm going to copy it back down. Nothing's going to change. I'm going to distribute this negative 1. Negative 1 times 5 is minus 5. Negative 1 times minus 4x, a negative times a negative always makes a positive. So basically when you have this minus to distribute, what it's going to do is change the sign and everything that comes after it. This 5 used to be positive, now it's negative. 4x used to be negative, now it's positive. Now here's that like terms thing I was just talking about. This 3x is squared. This x and this x are not squared. They have no exponent, or an exponent of 1. So this and this can be combined, but not with the 3x squared. Since the 3x squared doesn't have anything to be combined with, I'm going to write it back down the way it was. To combine minus x and positive 4x, we're combining the big numbers, so this is technically a negative 1 sitting out front. Negative 1 plus 4, that's positive 3x. And then this minus 5 also doesn't have anything to combine with. So there you go, your final answer. That's all you need to do. Okay, some people are trying to factor this, make it way more harder than it needs to be. All I want you to do is add and subtract those like terms. Alright, that pretty much covers the problems I'm seeing on 8.1. For 8.2, it seems as if we have forgotten our exponent rules, okay? So let's start with something really simple. X times 3x plus 8. Again, the goal here is to distribute this x. So I'm starting with x times 3x. I'm seeing a lot of people just saying that's still 3x and leaving it that way. If I'm multiplying 3x by this x here, it needs to change, not stay the same exact way. So if you'll remember, x times x, even though you don't see an exponent, there's that invisible little exponent of 1 sitting right there on both of them. And when we multiply variables that have exponents, the exponents get added. So this 3, it can stay the way it is, big 3. X to the first times x to the first. 1 plus 1 is 2. So that's x squared. Alright, and then x times 8. That's just going to be plus 8x here. This is an x squared. That's just an x. So again, these are not like terms. You cannot combine them. Let's look at one a little bit tougher and we'll be done for this week. Something else that seems to be confusing is when there are two different variables on the same question. For instance, both a and b in the same question. Okay, so first of all, we've got that same idea of making sure we know our exponent rules. A times 2a. They both have that imaginary 1, so I'm going to keep the 2. A times a is a squared because I added together the exponents of 1. A times negative 5 is negative 5a. Don't leave off the a, he's important too. Then I go to the next section, okay? Some people seem kind of confused when there's two parentheses. Do the same thing you always do. Distribute this one, distribute that one separately, and then you can go from there. So that's distributing the first part. Now I've made it to the second one, so I need to distribute this 4. 4 times 3a, well, I can multiply the big numbers. 4 times 3 is a positive 12, so I put a plus sign, and I need to keep the a. Now I have 4 times b. All right, there's no number on this one, so the 4 stays the same. That's plus 4, and then I need to keep that b in there as well. Okay, so I distributed the first one, distributed the second one, no big deal. Now I need to look across and double check, see if there are any terms that can be combined. Here I have a minus 5a, there I have a plus 12a. Those both have an a without a variable, so they are like terms. This one right here, a squared, that has a different exponent, so it's not a like term. This one has the same exponent, but a different variable, so also not a like term. These are the only two I'm going to combine. So 2a squared can stay the same. Minus 5a plus 12a is plus 7a, and then I have a plus 4b at the end there. And that should wrap it up for this week's question and answer. Thanks, guys.